Welcome back to the Animation Basics series where we are working in Autodesk Maya. This is Lesson 2, Part 2, Modeling. Now before we get started, make sure that your camera is set to 1920 by 1080. You can check by going up here, clicking on this director looking button with the gear symbol, scrolling down, renderable cameras, Playblast camera. We made that in the last lesson. And the image size should be HD 1080. So make sure you have that all set. And now in the Playblast camera, which should already be open based off the last lesson, let's click on it in the outliner and make sure you click on this lock button in this little viewport area. Okay, you can tell that it's on because it is turned blue, and with the outliner Playblast camera selected, you can go to the channel box and see everything right here is grayed out. If it's not grayed out, so look over there, I'm gonna uncheck it. If it looks like this, that is wrong. If it looks like this, that is correct. So make sure it looks like that. And let's go to File, Save Scene. Make sure that your setup is now updated and accurate. Okay? Next up, let's go to File, Save Scene As, and now we want to make a modeling file. So lesson 02 underscore or L02 underscore modeling. Make sure it's a Maya ASCII file, then click on Save As. We can double check that it's in the correct folder. I actually already have it up. But if you forgot how, open up lesson 2, go to Scenes, and you can check here. Okay, now in this lesson in modeling, we're going to do 3 things. One of those things you'll do by yourself. So let me open this up. We're going to be modeling this ramp, the ground, the wall, this background, which is just a white plane, and the ball. You'll be doing the ball all by yourself because you learned that in the last lesson. Let's see the animation too. So we're making this ramp so we can go down the ramp, the ground for it to roll, and then the wall for it to hit and then bounce off of. Let's go back here. Now I already made the pink ball because again, that's what you're responsible for. So I want to turn that back off. If you want to pause the video, you can. Otherwise, we'll get to that later. Let's start off by making the ground. So go to the Poly Modeling shelf and make sure you grab this cube. Okay. Now you can see this cube is right in the center. You can tell that the center with these darker lines, these darker gray lines right here. I actually want the top of it to be at this center line. So this cube in the channel box over here, go to the Y translate and say -0.5. -0.5, click on the return key. Now the cube is at that baseline. Okay? Let's also rename the cube while we're up here. So I'm going to rename the cube to ground. Oops. Ground underscore geo. Click on the return key. And let's go ahead and freeze the transformations. So I selected everything, right click, freeze all. Okay? Now we need this ground to be just as wide as the camera, if not a little wider. We want it to come a little bit off into this gray area because if it's still inside, this is what the camera sees. So let's do that. Click on this button right here. This is the scale button. Or you can click on the R key on your keyboard. Click on this red handle and scale it out. Okay. Now we're going to scale it or translate it down differently. So if I want this bottom piece to go down here, I cannot click on this green. See how it changes where it starts? I don't want that. I want it to stay on this dark gray line that we saw earlier. So we're going to go into vertex mode. Let's go on this new panel over here. So if you click on the channel box and then go, whoops, click on this channel box and then go down 2. So 1, 2, you should see something called the modeling toolkit. Click on that. And then we're going to click on this button right here. This is Vertex Selection or Vertex Mode. So we can click on the box to select it. Then with your mouse in this gray area, click and drag to fully select the lower half of the box. See how these are highlighted? Go to that move tool or click on the W key and then move everything down. Sweet. Now for the next part, I'm going to change into my perspective camera just so it's a bit easier to select the box. So I'm going to go to this panel button on the left side, panel layout right above the outliner button. So click on that. We can also click on the outliner to go away for now. Now this camera is not the correct perspective view. This is the front Z. But I need to go to Panel, Orthographic View, Play Blast Camera, so I can see exactly what I'm doing within my animation scene. Now in the perspective view, make sure you can see the top of the box. We can get rid of this grid by clicking on this button right here, the grid button. We don't need it in the perspective view. Now in order to get this ramp and this wall, we're going to use 2 new tools. We're going to use the Extrude tool and the, I always forget what it's called, the Insert Edge Loop tool. Okay? So in the perspective view, let's make sure that you can see the top of the box. Go to, I just saw it, Mesh Tools, go down to Insert Edge Loop tool. Okay, now with the box in view, click on one of the top lines up here, okay, one of these lines. Click on that and hold. You can see now in the Play Blast camera that I'm moving back and forth. I haven't let go yet. You can see this green line has appeared. That's going to be inserting a edge loop to my geometry. And we want to move it right over here. This is about 1/6 of the box. So make sure it's 1-2 squares away from the end of the camera. It doesn't have to be precise. And now let's make another one. Make sure that you're on the left-hand side, otherwise it might be stuck. So made another one. See how it's stuck? I won't go past that edge. And you want to, if this is the center, you can tell in my Play Blast camera, I want to move it 1 box over, 1 box over. It doesn't have to be perfect, so don't worry about that. And while we have this perspective camera up, let's use a new tool. In the components over here, click on the next one. This is the face tool. So if I hover over my box, if it wants to work, oh, I'm still in edge loop mode. Click on the Q on keyboard or click on this button up here to make sure that you're not in edge loop mode or insert edge loop mode. Now, click on your box and hover over. You should get this desired effect. Okay, if you don't, just let me know. Now let's go to the top of the box here. I'm going to zoom in so it's easier to see. So when my mouse hovers over it, you can see in the Play Blast perspective that it's also red, which is awesome. You want to go to, you want to click on it, and then in components down here, click on Extrude. This will allow us to extrude it up and out. You want to extrude it all the way up so that it's past this resolution gate. So cool. To exit out, just click on Q. And then back in over here, let's click on our spacebar to be in the Play Blast camera. Let's go back to this button right here, the vertex mode. Let's click and drag, and we're going to grab these two vertex here, use our W key or our translate tool, and move it up about 2 boxes or 2 squares. So now we have our ramp, the floor, and the ground, all from one piece of geometry. So cool. At least I think it is. We're going to right click and go to object mode. Now if you right click, you can also go vertex and face mode, but the modeling course that I'll have later will have more details on that. We're just doing animation, so make sure you're in object mode. Let's also color it while we're at it. So click on your geometry, go to Window, Rendering Editors, Hypershade. You should be familiar based off the last lesson. Go to the crate over here and then search up Lambert. Click on the Lambert. Now in the property editor, you want to name this Lambert. Let's name it black_Lambert. Click on color to change the color to black. And now we have a black Lambert. Now again, I've already made the pink ball, so I already have all of these extra nodes and shaders. You'll have to make that yourself eventually. So click on the ground, right click, assign existing material. Let's find that black Lambert. Ooh, that's nice. Let's go back to the channel box. Let's click on our ground geo. Let's freeze transformations. I'll show you one more cool tool. Instead of freezing everything here, there's a shortcut key. If you're geo selected and the poly modeling shelf, you can go all the way to the right, freeze transformations, and this button right here is delete history by type. So this quick button is basically us going to edit, delete all by type history. So that's just a nice shortcut. So let's use that. You can see everything disappears when I click on it here. Nice. Okay, so got our ground geo. Let's make that layer. It is selected. Let's click on this. Double click the layer. Name it ground layer. Set it to reference. And then I want to make the color black. Sweet. I'll make the background in a bit. Now here's one thing when it comes to the pink ball. When we make it initially, you can see that, well, now they intersect. If we grab the main control and we move it on translate Y up, I check my notes. Yep, translate Y, enter 1, return, click on translate Y, and then go to that freeze transformation button that I just showed you. So now it should automatically be, let's say I place it over here. Now I can go to translate Y, set everything to 0, and it'll be back right where we want it to be. So make sure you do that after your ball is all set up. I'm going to hide the ball for now so we can do the final part of this tutorial. Let's make that white plain background. So I want to click on the space bar. I then go to my perspective view. Okay. In my perspective view, I want to go to my poly modeling and click on this plane, crate plane. In my perspective view, I want to move it back on this blue line right here, the z-axis. And then I want to rotate it on the x-axis 90 degrees. I just need it to be flat for this background over here. Make sure you give some distance between the set and the backdrop. Okay, back in the Play Blast camera, I just, again, hover over, use your space bar, and then let's scale this up. I just want to scale it enough where it covers the screen. And I'm going to translate it as needed. Awesome. Let's name this backdrop underscore geo. Let's also freeze transformations and history once you have it in this view. Now, the rest you are responsible for is to paint this geometry white. So we did that with a Lambert color. We did a black Lambert, make a white Lambert for the backdrop. Make sure that your backdrop is in its own layer called backdrop layer. And if you've not already made the ball, make the ball and make sure that is translated up one, freeze the transformations, and also the history. And that is what you're responsible for this tutorial. So yeah, once you have that done, I'll see you in the next lesson. Oh, and don't forget to save. Almost forgot. Let's save our scene. Make sure you always save your scene. Very important. Don't forget that. Okay. If you have any questions, let me know. Finish that up, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.